Hey guys, I'm Norb.
And I'm Mike.
And we are the Watchmen.
The men who watch.
If it's on a screen, we're watching it, talking about it, and sharing our thoughts about it with you guys.
Today we are going back to 1986 to review a gem of a cult classic called RAD.
I had never seen this movie before, so I had to watch it just to catch up on this little hidden 80s gem. And so it's going to be fun to talk about it because this is brand new. The movie just came out for me. So it's going to be fun. I know you've seen it before, but first time for me. So before we get into it, I just want to quickly thank all of you who are watching on our YouTube channel. Thank you for your support. Hit that like button and hit the subscribe button and hit that notification bell. And for those of you listening on podcast, thank you as well for listening to us. And let us know what you think of our show. We do this for you guys. So thanks for your support and listening or watching us. We appreciate it. So let's get into it.
Okay. So, quick synopsis. Crew Jones is a young BMX racer who lives in a small town with his mother and sister. Crew is faced with a tough decision: qualify for Hell Track, which is a corrupt promoter's nationally televised cash prize race, or should he take the SAT in order to attend college? Winning Hell Track means $100,000, a new Chevrolet Corvette, and fame. This movie was directed by Hal Needham and stars Bill Allen as Crew Jones, Lori Loughlin as Christian Hollings, Talia Shire as Miss Jones, Ray Walston as in Mr. Hand from Fast Times at Ridgemont High as Burton Timmer, and Bart Connor, famous 1980s gymnast, as Bart Taylor. So, back in the 80s, BMX bike racing was everything, and we all wanted a BMX bike. At least I know I did. Did I have a BMX bike? No, I had the next best knockoff there was, which was the K-Mart All-Pro Panther, because that was just a little more affordable. So this movie was a fad film. It was made to capitalize on the BMX craze at the time, which was kind of like, no different than skateboarding. People riding bikes, doing stunts, jumps, things like that. So, Norb, did you ever have a BMX bike?
No, I never had a BMX bike. And really, there's a time in the 80s where I went to, some of you may know this or not, but I went to Japan as an exchange student for 1 year. And there's a time during the 80s when you're in your junior high and high school years, 1 year is a huge time frame, as we know. Unlike now when we're older, 1 year is like, well, what year is this? 2 years ago? And it all blends together. But in the 80s for us, being at that time of our life, every year was crucial. Every year marked a distinct difference between a year in middle school or junior high and then a year in high school. So radically different. And for me, I was gone for my junior year half my sophomore year and half my junior year because I was in Japan. And so a lot of the stuff that happened in 85, in particular 86, I just have this void of what normally is a chock full of experience with my friends bonding over certain things. And there was definitely since this movie fell in the 1986 realm, I don't have any recollection of when this came out. I have no idea about the hype, and BMX stuff, I wasn't even interested. I mean, it just didn't even cross my radar. So this movie completely, when you even mentioned it, I was like, RAD? What's RAD? I didn't know anything about it. So it literally was like I came out of time and saw something from my past that I didn't even know existed. So it was wild to be suddenly thrown into this moment in time that represented a very, like you said, a very fad-based film of which I knew nothing about. So it was a trip for me to watch this movie and go, holy cow, how did I miss this? But I know why I missed it. I was physically out of the country. So it was fun to jump back in and watch something that I missed a big part of. So,
I saw this movie in the theater because I had a friend who was really into BMX bike racing and just, having a BMX bike. So I saw it with him, and I remember just so little of it. So even watching it now for me was almost practically a brand new experience. All I remembered is some guys hopping on their bikes. That's all I really remembered. So But I'm interested to hear what you thought, Norb, since this was your first time
inaugural ride into the RAD
watching
world.
A movie that I don't think many people know about.
Yeah, well, I'm one of those many. So right away, what hits me first is immediately the soundtrack is as dated as it comes. And so, you kind of love those movies because some movies extend past, live classically beyond that time because it has a score that is more orchestral. Like Raiders of the Lost Ark, the 1981 film, but its score lives on. It's timeless. You don't know what time period it's from because it's strings. This had everything about it that said, we're in 1986 and you're not going to forget about it at any moment. The whole soundtrack from every track played and the score itself was just in your face 1986. And I
orchestra. Who needs an orchestra? There was no orchestra in this movie.
I mean, and nothing screams 80s soundtrack. I mean, there's certain things that give it away. It might be the synth chords. It might just be the arrangement, the vocals. But when you put these Simmons drums, the famous, and when that's in every song, you know right away, this is right here in that period. So that immediately hits me because the opening track, and you mentioned the guys bouncing on the bikes, the opening credit montage is a bunch of guys in a long lens shot, all doing their little tricks, and a lot of it is bouncing hop on their
It's
the front
really
wheel of the bike.
ballet. They're doing bike ballet.
Bike ballet, yeah, exactly. And so they're just spinning and hopping on the wheel and into this soundtrack. So right away it sets the tone. But I have to say, you know what? I was trying to think, what does this feel like to me? And this reminds me, it's a weird comparison. I don't think anybody in this world would make this comparison, but it was like watching the movie Purple Rain. And I'll explain it in this way. Purple Rain, I love Prince, and you know this. I love Prince, and I love the movie Purple Rain. But Purple Rain has some of the most god-awful acting in it. But you love the music performances. It's just so good when they get to the action. In the case of Prince of Purple Rain, the action, the live stage performances are what I go back and back for. And the acting is sort of laughable and cheesy and terribly written and poorly acted. And that's like this movie. The biking stuff is pretty good. It's pretty fun to watch. But the acting in between, oh my gosh.
So what
terrible.
You're saying, you're basically saying that this is another type of break-in movie. Because break-in was the same exact thing. Great concert footage of the breakdancing, but the rest of it, bad acting.
It was really bad. I mean, some of the editing and just everything about the way it's cut together, it just has a very, sometimes painful to watch, but I painful in a charming way because I'm going, oh, this is 86. I forgive you guys, So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the campy badness of it and the bad score to go with it, or the dated score to go with it. But the biking stuff was actually really, because I hadn't watched a lot of bike-based movies. Those who watched it and watched these guys doing some of these stunts and some of the riding was pretty cool to watch. So I guess that's my overall just impression. Cheesy, bad acting, super dated score, but entertaining bike riding. So that's kind of my initial stuff. There's more detailed things I want to mention, but that's my overarching description. Like you said, all those fad movies from Break-In to what else did they do that are fad-based? A lot of dance stuff, obviously. But, pretty much that's kind of the thing. You live for the cool stuff that is the fad, and everything else is just, strung together with tape and some whiteout and glue to make everything else work. But I enjoyed it.
Did you recognize the actress who played Miss Jones?
Miss Jones, that's right away. It's like, oh my gosh, Adrian! It's like, what's she doing in here? It's like, oh my God, they got the supporting actress from Rocky in this movie. I was like, what the heck?
And then after you see her, she shows up in the movie like for another 5 minutes of screen time. So she was barely in that film.
And she's not really, I mean, her acting scenes were fine, but like during the racing times, there were parts when, you're watching the reactions and she sometimes looked like she's just bored, not even paying attention. Yeah. Like your son is like fighting for second place and you look like you're just kind of staring off into space. I mean, just pretend at least that you're actually into this race. I know it's a cutaway shot and you just sort of, and action, now watch the race. And she just almost looked like she's checked out. But yeah, she was surprising cameo. I was like, wow.
Well, when you try to wrap your head around the casting of this film at the time, and you, of course, nowadays, how many people know who Bart Connor is? Now, I will admit, I didn't even know who Bart Connor was then. And it was explained to me that he was a famous gymnast who won some gold medals at the Olympics. I might have watched some of the Olympics, but
he's actually the only guy outside of Lori Loughlin whose name I recognized right off the bat. So I said, "Oh, Bart Connor, the gymnast, is that him?" I didn't know he rode a bike.
So here it is. They got Bart Connor, the gymnast, playing a BMX rider. Okay, the guy's he's not a BMX famous rider like the other guys they have in it. They clearly brought him into this movie because of his name value. Yeah.
And obviously he was popular at that time.
Not because of his acting value.
No.
And right away, the minute he starts popping off some lines, you're thinking, oh boy, this guy cannot act. And they must have known it too, because he doesn't have a lot of lines in the movie. And maybe he had more, but they probably cut all those scenes out.
Well, you know what? And actually, to be fair, the acting in the whole movie is so bad, he actually blends right in. It's not like everybody's good and here's Bart Connor who sucks. They all look pretty bad. I mean, I don't even know who Bill Allen, the main actor who plays Crew Jones. I had to IMDb him just to find out what else he's been in. And he did some things up through like the late 90s, but nothing major.
He was better than Bart
He was
Connor,
better,
though.
but there are some times that, obviously he's your protagonist. He's the guy you're rooting for, the hero of the movie. And they had a couple of scenes. I made some notes about some of his. This would be the Academy Award-winning monologue. He's supposed to blow you away with his emotional moment. And the two where he talks about, he has the confrontation. He won like the first two heats in the race to qualify. And then he's about to do the last one and his mom comes up because she's mad because he was supposed to take the SAT retakes that day and he didn't. Clearly, she saw him on TV and she storms down there to confront him right on the track. And, and she's talking about, this is so self-destructive of you. And then he talks about, well, I can always retake the SATs, but this is something, only thing I know how to do well is ride this bike. And if I don't do this now, this will be self-destructive. Anyway, something like that. And I was like, come on, you can do it.
I remember that part. I remember that was a really bad moment.
And there was another one later when he's talking about with the girl and having this epiphany of things. And it's always bad when you find yourself and as a crowd, as a viewer, rooting for the actor, like, come on, you can do it. No, you can't. So,
well, I have some thoughts on that. And I'm going to defend the bad acting to a certain level. And the person I'm ultimately going to blame on the bad acting is the director.
I was going to say the same thing. I agree.
So Hal is a stuntman, and he did all the Burt Reynolds movies, like Smokey and the Bandit, Cannonball Run. And watching a behind-the-scenes clip from RAD, Hal said, Burt Reynolds made my career. So he was a stuntman who was able to make a career out of doing Burt Reynolds movies. This guy clearly knows stunts, and he knew how to shoot the action again, but I don't think this guy knows a lick about what it means to emotionally direct characters or create a convincing love story. So my feeling is these actors gave it the best they could, but they've got a director who I don't think he has a clue of what it means to have a line delivered in an emotional way that's convincing to where you're not feeling like it's just being recited from a script. So I think, unfortunately, these actors did not have a good director to help them come up with
and that's what it is. It's one of those things where you can tell where his strength is. The action stuff is really well done. Some really cool shots, some cinematography from really low perspective and slow-mo, the bikes coming down on you. And like I said, I felt like I'd seen a biking movie like this before. So it was fun to see that aspect. But as soon as the action was over, it was like, okay, back to more painful dialogue from everybody. I mean, even Talia Shire, the famous actress from Rocky, looked bad in this. So yes, you can actually have good actors and bad actors, and when they all look bad, you have one person to point at, and that's the director. So I agree, and I don't know who wrote this. Did he write and direct this? But the script was pretty schlocky too. So he had limited material to work with. Then you have bad direction on top of it. And so you just have to kind of throw that out and just appreciate it for what it is, and that's the fun action.
Now, this movie was made to showcase a fad, and it was BMX bike racing and stunts at the time, just like the movie Breakin'. I look at them as so similar in so many respects. So it was. I would recommend seeing this movie just for the bike stunts. It's like you said, you'd recommend Purple Rain too.
Yeah,
but there's. Anytime there's not bike racing or bike stunts, you could almost fast forward if you want, I would say.
No, don't fast forward, because you have to cherish I like I said, it was so bad, it's good. And that's kind of what it was. It was painfully bad in a good way.
Well, when I'm saying almost fast forward, I'm not talking about us 80s people fast forwarding. I'm talking about people who are not 80s people who are maybe thinking about giving this a shot because we suggest to. So that's where I'm going with that.
Well, that's true.
I know Rob's listening. I don't want Rob to think that I hated it that bad, because I really liked it. We had a super fun time watching this movie.
No, I didn't hate it at all. I loved watching it because I could laugh at it, and like it was like patting a kid on the head. Oh, that was cute, son.
Well, there's a famous scene in the movie where they have a bike dance off, so to speak, in the middle of a school dance in the gym, and they do it to the song "Send Me an Angel" by Real Life. And Lori Loughlin is supposed to be this really great BMX stunt rider. It is so obvious. They've got a stunt guy wearing a wig. It's clearly a stunt guy wearing a wig, because it's a bad looking wig.
It is.
So that was super fun to watch and funny to laugh at too. Every time they cut to her character doing something cool, you can right away tell.
I was going to bring that was a highlight note I made, is like, Lori Loughlin, Send Me an Angel bike dance scene. I like the song, by the way, but it's like with all this cheesy stuff, when that song came on, I was like, all of a sudden I like this song real quick, because that one actually, I mean, I know that song, but it just suddenly brought me out of the trendy synth bad soundtrack to this. This song's actually kind of sounds good right now, because it just
Hal
stood out
Needham
from
talked
else.
about when they shot that scene, they used a different song, and he said it was a song they all liked, but they knew they wouldn't get the rights to it. And so he said I was blown away when I saw what the editors did. They found this song and they made it work. So Send Me an Angel was never the one they were even doing the shooting with. It came later, and that's some good editing right there.
Yeah, that was. I think what cracks me about the whole Lori Loughlin thing is that it clearly, you could see how they're cheating to try to make it look like she's doing some things. They shoot from low. They never show her really on the bike. It's just a close-up and maybe a seat
and a lot of lights spiking the lens, so you can't really look at her.
And to hide the stunt person when they cut to the wide shot. But the funny thing is that at other times when she is really riding the bike with Crew Jones, she doesn't look like she's comfortable on the bike. She always looks like she's really not even a good rider, less somebody who could do all these stunts. So there's clearly the extreme on one side that she's probably just barely able to just pedal and go down a hill, and to be on the extreme side where she's supposed to be this not only a good on a bike, but is one of the top bike performers in the world. She didn't look that at all. So this is definitely a major stunt person replacement stuff that is pretty hilarious. So. But she was cute though. She's nice to look at. Reminds you of I remember her from the 80s.
Yep.
So that was it was fun to watch that, and then the whole relationship building scenes, the song montages of them hanging out and splashing each other in the river and all those good things are
pretty cheeseball.
Very typical 80s fashion, but couldn't help but smile and laugh and enjoy.
Hal talked about when they built the Hell track, they had that big ramp that they all come down at the beginning. Top, and he said that it cost $100,000 to build that ramp. Oof. And when he was talking to all the stunt riders, he said, look, we're going to spend a lot of money on this. We've not used a ramp like this before for bike stunts. You guys are going to do it, right? And they're all like, oh, yeah, sure. He said, so after they built it and they all showed up, he said they all had this wide-eyed look on their face when they were looking at it like, whoa, that is big. But then they started practicing on it, and after a while, they were fine with it. So
yeah, like I said, it was cool.
$1,000 for that ramp.
Wow. It was cool though. It definitely made for some good dramatic shots from below when they're coming down from up high to the camera. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. This was filmed in Cochrane and Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Okay. Yeah, the couple of small other things. I caught a glimpse of. Well, just again the 80s. You know, they don't have to create 80s references because it is the 80s. And so just the opening where they show Crew Jones driving around as a paper boy, delivering all his papers. I was never a paper boy. I filled in for Rob a couple times when he was on vacation. Yeah. And I didn't do it on my bike. I just walked it and did, the typical route. But that's a thing of the past. The paper boy, was definitely... It was such a cool thing at the time because I remember Rob would come around, he'd bring the paper every day, and then of course he'd collect the money at one time a month. And I don't know if you did it, but I got to experience it just because I had filled in for him a couple times. I remember I missed like a house or two because I got confused on the address, and then the next day they said, "We're canceling our subscription because you didn't bring our paper yesterday." I was like, "Oh no!"
Wow, way to go, Norb.
I think we got it fixed, explained the problem, and it was all good. But
yeah, there's one character in the movie. Remember, he yells, "Make sure you get it on the porch."
Yeah.
He keeps missing the porch.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much, when you're a kid, you don't really care that much about the paper. You just read it when it's in the house. But some of those people, man, it's like they need that paper. And if they don't get it exactly at the right time and have it where it's supposed to be, they would get mad. So, like I said, I almost got Rob fired from his route. But that was fun to watch.
Speaking of Rob, a part of what made this so much fun is, and I learned a little bit more about how much Rob loves this movie. He really loves this movie. It's one of his top, I'd say probably his number 2, if I remember. He told me of 80s films. So he came up, he talked at length about the 2 songs from this movie. One of them's called Break the Ice by John Farnham, and another one called Thunder in My Heart.
Thunder in My Heart. They used that one twice, I think.
By John Farnham. And I'd never heard of John Farnham. And when they're playing Break the Ice, Rob's singing it. He's singing. He knows all the lyrics. And so I thought I would share a few of these awesome kick butt lyrics with you so you can just get a sense of 80s songwriting at its max here. Frozen in silence, facing it alone. Gotta keep my cool, make 'em think I'm made of stone. It's a game of wills we're playing. Our nerves are made of steel, balanced on the edges of everything we feel. It's gonna take all of we got just to make it through this night. Gotta feel it right through my skin, and it's cutting like a knife. Get ready to break the ice. Feels like time is standing still, aiming right for your heart. Ready to take another spill. Only you can make it right. You can't break the ice inside of me. You know how I can sing that like that? Is because it sounds like every 404 song I ever listened to in the 80s. John Farnham has that Lou Gramm, Loverboy, Foreigner, that raspy
high.
That raspy sound. And I was thinking about how nobody sings like that anymore. That was an 80s voice sound. And John Farnham, he dialed it in, just like what everyone else was doing, all the famous ones.
Yep.
So how did those lyrics hit you, Norb?
It's songwriting brilliance at its essence, man. I don't know if that's the one that they did. There was a song they played twice. I think they played it in the middle of the show and they did it at the end credits also.
I think it was Break the Ice.
I'm pretty sure it was Break the Ice. Yeah. But like I said, the whole thing was very. It was an mid 80s, big hair band song fest with the whole thing. That's what I enjoyed about it. Is you couldn't get away from it. You just were constantly bombarded with that 80s feel, and then the vocal parts on top of that just were like it was perfect in sync with what the time was. What it was like. That was the norm for movies then, and. It just totally works. It's funny that you mentioned that Rob loved it so much because we never talked about it. And maybe because he knew I didn't have a connection, so he wouldn't bring it up. But like I said, when you mentioned the movie, I might have heard the name, but I had no kind of, oh yeah, Rob's talked about that being his favorite, or oh yeah, I heard about that one, or this. I just had nothing. It was just empty. My mental Google searched up RAD, and I had nothing in here. It's like zero results.
I think maybe part of the reason is what's interesting about RAD's history is that once it came out in the theaters, it did have a VHS release, and what I learned is that, and when it came out in the theaters, it didn't do well. It got panned by the critics. I even pulled up a review from the New York Times, said that teenage years may not split from the music or ache from the dialogue, but anybody over 20 beware. You're willing to sacrifice a solid future for a bicycle race, says the hero's mother. It's very self-destructive. If only he had listened to mom. But who can blame him for preferring his bicycle? That was from the New York Times. I honestly think this movie was really targeted at kids who liked BMX bike racing. This was not targeted at adults, so it doesn't surprise me that adults didn't like it. And also, as a kid, I think I was much more forgiving of bad acting than I am now. Yeah. Back then, I think, I didn't know anything about love in the 80s or what it meant to be in love. So when I see characters in love on the screen, I have no connection. I have no understanding of what it even means to have a relationship. So whatever they say to each other, to me, it's like something I hope to experience someday. Right. So again, I'm not going to be very critical as a kid of the acting. And I think that's what happens is when we get older now, we look at it and go, oh man, that was bad. But back then, you're just soaking it all in. It's kind of another view at the world you might not know about yet as you're continuing to grow up.
Probably when you watched it, you're just thinking about how hot Lori Loughlin was and how you wish you could be that guy hanging out with her.
And that I'm so far from ever having a girl like that.
So you can just think about the bad acting. You're too busy looking at her, studying her and her face and her body, thinking, ooh, man, that dude's lucky. But
so what I learned is this movie was popular, developed a cult following because the VHS tapes were always in bike shops across the country. So bike shops would always have this movie for sale within its own network, so to speak. But the movie never got a DVD release. So it's a big deal that it was finally released on not only Blu-ray, but 4K high def Blu-ray. And I had to get it from this obscure company that got the rights to make this. So you had, the only reason I knew about this release is because I frequent websites that have news on what's coming. Otherwise, you're not going to find this in a retail store for purchase. So this movie has been bootlegged for many, many years just to even see it. The soundtrack was only released on record. So again, probably one reason Rob didn't talk to you about this movie very much is because it wasn't out there. Yeah. You didn't even have access to it.
But I guess we could have rented it on VHS though, right?
That's the one thing you could have done.
And as many videos as we rented over the years, that never popped up. So yeah, just flew right by, went by the radar, and this whole secret crush that Rob's had, not secret, but this was a secret from me because I had no idea that Rob was into this movie. So it's pretty wild. Yeah. I feel like I've caught up on some time of a missing chapter, especially with my friendship with Rob. The secret. Now we can talk about it. The secret gem that's been missing all of our lives for the
So
past
what did your girls
years.
Think of it?
I was gonna make them watch this thing. Oh my gosh.
Oh. No way. There's no thunder in your heart, man. Brett watched it with us. He enjoyed it.
Well, he rides a bike. He'd be into that. I could see it. No, my kids, I wouldn't even try to make them watch this movie. No way. No freaking way. They wouldn't be able to get past the first 5 minutes. They'd be like, can we watch something else? And I'd probably be going, yeah, for you, let's watch something else. This at the end of it, yeah, there would be no redeeming. There would be nothing redeeming for them to walk away from.
Even the bike, the bike stunts.
They wouldn't care if they're watching bike stunts now. They're 10 times better on better bikes. It's just not their thing. So they wouldn't have appreciation of this. And like you said, this was meant for BMX bikes fans at the time. And yeah, I guess some. I mean, you obviously showed it to your son. But yeah, my kids, it'd be like sitting there, tied to a chair and tortured for 95 minutes or however long this movie was. I would not put them through that. There'd be better uses of time than to make them watch this movie. I got a lot more movies from the 80s I'd rather have them watch than this one. Shoot, they haven't even watched Die Hard yet. Can't get into watch Die Hard, less this thing. This is special to me. Good luck with
Die Hard.
No, I think we can get there. We can get there. This time in our lives right now, I've got so more movies from the 80s and 90s I'd ever thought I'd get them to watch. So there's still hope. There's still hope. I tried on the Die Hard. We never even got to the good stuff. So I feel like the best is yet to come with that one. But no, this is one where it was just special for me because one, I know what this meant to my friends and to guys like you who we can talk about this and have this connection. So when I talk about Simmons drums and go, my kids don't know what I'm talking about other than that's just the sound. But you and I go, oh, yeah, I remember that. It's a totally different thing.
Well, I know for Rob, it was, he expressed how cool it was to see the movies in high def. Just something that he knew so well, but had really just seen it in the theater and then seen it on VHS.
Crappy VHS copies. I think it cracks me up, though, that this movie got a 4K release because at its core, what you had to work with in the beginning doesn't even fall into 4K quality. I mean, I appreciate the fact that I was able to watch it in this nice quality. It's as good as it's ever going to get. But
you have to remember though, Norb, you're forgetting an aspect of 4K UHD. It's not just 4K, it's HDR, high dynamic range. And that can make a difference in the black levels and that it doesn't matter how old a movie is. Okay, HDR can make a difference.
What I'm getting at is this movie doesn't need to. There's so much about this movie that is so bad. The black levels don't save it. I'm sorry. There are movies where you go, oh, I'm glad they preserved the cinema because like Braveheart in 4K, Empire Strikes Back, now you're seeing all the nuances of this beautifully, epic movie of its time. This is rad. It's anything but epic. I guess I just feel like movies that are worthy of the epicness of the big screen presentation needs to be translated. I'm sorry, but you could have done away with the 4K and the UHD.
Wow, the lyric from John Farnham's song, and it's cutting like a knife, was just rang true here. You cut through Rob's happiness like a knife with that comment.
I'm just saying there's overkill sometimes. There's some things worth spending the extra effort to make sure you save every morsel of detail. But it's the bad acting doesn't need any better grayscale treatment in the black levels. Wow. I'm sorry. I could have watched this in some ripped version in VHS, and it probably would have had this. It wouldn't have been any better. Because of what it is. Maybe it would have actually fit more of the campier style.
Well, I think I'm going to disagree with you there. I liked watching it in a high def. It looked good for the time. I respect the quality, and there's clearly a cult following of this film, and I was thrilled to finally see it. Again, I knew of it. Even the soundtrack itself was a very expensive eBay purchase because of the Send Me an Angel song. People really like that song, and you could only get it on the soundtrack of RAD. So I think it's great that this film got a release, and there were some bonus features on there that were fun to watch, some behind the scenes, even interviews at the time, and they obviously had a retrospect, so they interviewed some of the people when they're a little older in life, and it's always fun to hear people talk about their memories of making a movie, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I do have a small surprise. Along the lines of the.
Before you do the surprise, I did want to mention one thing that was funny to see.
I figured you were done.
Oh no, this has nothing to do with anything else. It was the fact that in the background there was a gas station, and it had the price per gallon. It was 46 cents. And that was awesome. I was like, anytime you see gas prices from another time period, it always blows your mind. 46 cents a gallon.
They had Coca-Cola cans in certain shots, and Rob and I commented it looked like it was the New Coke logo.
Oh yeah, because it came out with that in 85 or 86.
Yeah, it was around that time. So the new Coke, big fat letters of Coke. That's how you can always tell.
I remember that because I remember being in Japan when I heard the news. What? They're changing Coke?
So this is kind of cool. Rob shared this with me, and he let me keep it so I can make a copy of it. But this is the CD soundtrack of RAD.
Oh, he actually had it.
You see on the back, it's got the song list there. So what I think is really funny about this is that you can see the disc. Is that I am convinced this is a bootleg. Because all the information on the soundtrack of RAD is it was never released on CD. It was only released on record and cassette tape. And even to this day, there's no record of a CD release. So I think this is a bootleg.
So
and that's okay.
Can you hear the needle getting put on there? And then
I haven't listened to it yet.
That'll be the trick.
But I think I don't, I think it's cool that Rob was able to find this, and yes, I'm going to listen to the quality. I'm still glad to be able to have a copy, because again, the record of this album fetched a hefty price on eBay. We're talking $100 because it was so hard to get access to these songs. The only way you could was the record. So the RAD record on eBay definitely was up there in price, and that's one reason I never got it. I had looked into it, but I thought, nah, it's too much.
But I assume Rob didn't pay $100 for that CD though.
Oh, I doubt it. Yeah, I didn't ask.
It was afterwards, right?
Yeah, but again, it was fun to see Rob knows this song by heart, and I'm thankful that when they wrote this song that they decided not to have a lyric that said wave your hands in the air like you don't care, because I think then he probably wouldn't have been singing the praises of that tune.
That was before that time, before people were told to put raise their hands in the air and wave.
Don't tell me what to do in a song.
Unless it's got that high voice pitch. And then you can do it. But oh man, that was
I miss that raspy sound though. That raspy '80s sound that was done by so many of those groups at the time.
The other thing that was well showcased throughout was, we always talk about how they don't have sax solos anymore in songs. There's sax solos going on throughout this whole thing. All solos galore of guitar parts and sax.
Yep.
I mean, it's just like, whoa, woo. Like I said, everything I missed from the 80s, it all came pouring back in this movie in nonstop for 90 minutes. It was pretty
well, to this
hilarious.
day, I do not understand why the solo in a song, whether it's the sax or the synth or the violin or the flute, I don't care. Why is that gone, Mr. Music Expert Norb? Why did that go away? Who decided we are not going to have any more instrumental solos in songs, and it's stayed that way ever since? Why? What's wrong with that?
There have been a couple of rare exceptions where they actually did put a little bit of a solo, so I was shocked. I want to say, I'm just throwing it out there, I think there was a Katy Perry song where there's like a little solo. I was like, ooh, there's a little solo in here.
Let me guess, it was probably 5 seconds long.
But it was, and it's not like the old days. I don't know. It's the same reason why. And we were watching every once in a while when we're trying to figure out what to watch, we'll throw some trailers up, and sometimes we'll throw trailers up for an 80s or 90s movie just so the girls can kind of see what's this about, and then I might play with a trailer. And now whenever they see a trailer that actually has a voice on it, it's so dated because they have completely gotten rid of the movie trailer with the "In a World." I mean, that's gone.
Oh yeah, it's gone.
And the sax solo went away before that did. But it's the same reason. Why did they get rid of the voiceover guy? I mean, the voiceover was the staple, and it still is for like the mock parody trailers. But in a normal actual trailer for a movie these days, you do not hear the sniff of a voiceover anymore. And why did that happen? Same reason why somebody decided it's not cool to put a sax or a guitar solo in a song anymore. I don't know. I haven't really asked and looked into the history as to who decided that was no longer.
Well, whoever you are, wherever you are, you suck. You ruined music for me.
There's a lot of sax performers going, yeah, you really suck. You put me out of a job. I used to do all kinds of sax solos, and they went away. Can't remember how long ago, but just feel like it's been a couple decades now that the sax solo has been gone. I mean, you think of Careless Whisper, one of the greatest sax lines in the history of not only solo, it was like the signature. And Dirty Dancing had a sax solo in the middle of it, but man, that's just...
my favorite sax solo will always be from Spandau Ballet's True, though. And the best part about that is the music video, the rest of the video, after the guy does the sax solo, he's in the background with his saxophone just doing this little shifty dance. Because he has nothing else to do now. Yeah. But I love that. Love that. That's quintessential 80s moment for me.
Yep. Well, if you miss sax solos, just watch this movie and you'll get your fix, because there's solos galore all over it, amongst a bunch of other things that you probably don't miss, but you can get your fix in this one.
Don't you remember in the movie The Lost Boys? They've got this this kind of beach concert, and they've got the guy on the saxophone, and he's all like, he looks like he's all decked out in like crazy garb to make him look tough and mean, and he's just jamming on the sax on stage. And that was the time where if you were a sax player, you could be cool and you would have work. Like you said.
Yeah. I don't remember that. I don't know that movie well enough to remember scenes other than the maggots.
There's a song called "I Still Believe," but it's in the movie. Yeah, he's up there just playing like crazy, and he's looking cool and badass. A badass looking sax player. Mm-hmm. Check that out in Lost Boys.
Well, I need to rewatch that movie. It's been way too long. Maybe that's a movie we need to talk about. That's actually another
Lost
classic.
Boys? Oh, that's a great movie.
We should do that one actually with Kiefer Sutherland, and I haven't seen it in probably 20 years. So that'd be fun to go back down that road and rediscover that, because I don't know it. It's not in my brain where I can play back scenes. It's too.
See, look
too
at
distant.
what RAD has done. It's brought back the love for the sax solo, the Lost Boys. I mean,
and the Simmons drums.
This has turned into quite the RAD review.
Yeah. Oh yeah, everything about it. That's rad. I remember we used to say that. That was a big thing in 1987. We'd say, that's rad. We were saying rad all the time in 87. That's our senior year. I can't remember how long that terminology lasted, but it was definitely strong for at least a good year after the movie came out.
Well, clearly a shortened version of radical.
Yeah. Yep. But that was,
radical man.
I enjoyed that though. Good fun walk down mid 80s memory lane. So
yep.
Didn't need to have
You've got some thunder in your heart now.
Yep, you got the 4K UHD thunder in my heart. Still didn't make up for the bad acting.
Yep.
Still fun though.
The movie didn't quite break the ice inside of you on that one.
Oh, it did warm my heart though, because it warmed up my 1986 heart, and maybe go back to that time that I missed when I was out of the country for a year. All right, well, that was fun. So go check it out sometime. And
I don't know how you're going to check it out, though, because it's not available to check out. You had to get this disc through this company. They made 3,000 limited copies, and that's it.
So you can't stream it on anything?
Not yet. No, it's so.
Okay, well, don't check it out.
You could probably find the disc on eBay. I'm sure it's on eBay now, but. Okay. It's not an easy checkout, so if you want to see this movie, you're going to have to work for it a little bit. So it's worth the work.
So this review we did was on a movie that most people didn't see. Yep. It's hard to find, not convenient to stream anywhere, and you probably have to pay a lot more money to try to get the disc. So this is great for our audience here.
Actually, it was great, because now they're all going to go watch The Lost Boys.
Yeah, they won't watch RAD, but now they'll check out Lost Boy because they'll remember that one. All right, well, that's what the show's about. Talking about the things that not everybody talks about, not the mainstream. We get to talk about movies like RAD. That's why we have such a huge audience looking for this kind of content. All right, and speaking of audience, we want to thank you guys for being such a great audience. Those of you watching on YouTube, remember to do that thing, hit that like button and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. And for those of you on podcast, thanks for spending some time with us listening. We appreciate your support, and feel free to send us an email or comment and let us know what you think of the show. And if you have some other ideas for like a movie like RAD that not everybody knows about, that people should know about, let us know, and we'd be happy to talk about that. I'm Norb.
And I'm Mike.
And we are The Watchmen.
Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time. RAD!
Thanks for watching The Watchmen.
Please click on here to watch other episodes, and be sure to hit that like button too.
And please subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you'll always be alerted to any future episodes.
It really helps us out, and we appreciate it.
We'll see you next time. And remember, we'll be watching.